All right, hello and welcome to another edition of the Diversified Semantic Layer podcast. It's Eric Vallow, and I'm joined by a bevy of pals. Working from my left to right, my colleague Ahmed Sherif. Hey, Ahmed.
Hello.
The usual and ever fuzzy Jamie Oswald.
Good evening.
And another newcomer. We're really just rocking the boat. Mike Howles, newly minted SAP mentor as well. Hey, Mike.
Hello.
All right. So before we dive into the topic at hand, what's happening community news-wise?
Well, so the big ASUG Volunteer Summit just ended last weekend, so you should be getting your notifications about whether you're going to speak at ASUG Annual Conference / Sapphire pretty shortly. And then if you cannot wait that long to go to a BI conference, I believe that BI 2015 is coming up in Vegas next month. Is that right?
Yeah, it's second weekend.
On to the 15th.
Ahmed and I are going. You guys?
I will not be there.
No.
We won't have any fun without it.
Yeah.
There's also, as far as I know, one of the first ever that I can think of BI-specific ASUG events in St. Louis coming up, right?
Well, so it's not just BI, but it's the first time we're going to have an ASUG meeting with a full dedicated BI track. So we're going to have analytics from top to bottom throughout the day.
I don't know. I looked at the agenda. I didn't see anything else.
Well, you're just blinded to the noise, buddy. It's signal versus noise.
All right. Fine. Ooh, Ahmed, I hope you're here for that. You should go. It'll be a hoot.
I thought Ahmed was speaking with me.
Oh, yeah, about that. Hey, Ahmed, you're gonna speak.
Exactly.
Did I not mention that to you?
We'll talk about it tomorrow.
My bad. Yeah, talk to Jamie tomorrow. So anything else? We can dive into it. All right. So diving right in. I think the topic of the night is where is Design Studio against SAP Dashboards? Maybe not against SAP Dashboards, but we've been talking about this for 2 years. 3 years.
3.
And so, for what it's worth, let's spend a little time dissecting, both technology-wise, adoption-wise, and maybe even use case-wise, where these guys fit and how that roadmap is playing out. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna go first because I got help. Mike, you guys are heavy Design Studio users at your employer, yeah?
I am. I'm kind of charged in my role with kind of either driving where the new design pattern should ultimately begin, whereas in the past it has been Excelsius. Just for what it was is pretty mature product in its software life cycle, but looking forward to new development. I'd say 90% of the time, start with Design Studio first. If you think you need Excelsius, think at least 2 more times, honestly. And really, and then figure out if that animated chart really is that important, or those shiny themes are really a good usage case. So we're this year I'm pushing hard to say if you're getting dashboarding or what you feel are dashboarding requirements or BI application requirements, talk to me. As me being in the role I am as like kind of the solution architect to understand Design Studio better, and instead of understanding all the things that where all the gaps are. I think that those gaps have closed, I guess, and I think now it's a usable enough product to be taken seriously. Or even a year ago, I wouldn't have said so.
It's interesting choice of words. A usable enough product.
Yeah.
Does that mean it's palatable, or is it feature rich enough that it makes it compelling to actually use over dashboards?
It's moldable enough now, I would say, because of because primarily, in my opinion, the SDK. They've offered up a couple of additional API hooks, or SDK hooks rather, to make it even more moldable. They've got a lot of work to do if they want like a baseline tool install to even measure up to a lot of the things Excelsius could do. Especially like local calculation layer, that whole spreadsheet layer that you get in Excelsius is gone still in Design Studio. They've got a lot of work to do. If you notice on their more recent versions of the roadmaps, where they used to have like in the I'm pointing this way. I think this is to you guys, right? Like the future. They used to have like a migration tier, like they'd always list migration from Excelsius models over to Design Studio. You don't see that anymore because I never thought that was going to happen anyway. But now it's not even listed there anymore because I think they're just too architecturally different. If anything, Beck's Web Application Designer, Beck's Web Templates have a better chance of having a migration path than Design Studio than Excelsius. So yeah, I mean, I guess in long story short, I think Design Studio's got a lot of work cut out for it still. But because of SDKs and at least community participation or vendor add-on vendor participation, I think that they can fill those gaps.
Ahmed, one of the things that you presented on last year that I saw was the conversation on building Design Studio dashboards with no coding. Yeah. You know what? But however, with where Mike just took us, the reason it's usable is because he's able to extend it, and it's more malleable now, and you can turn it into something better. I mean, how do those two worlds collide, right? I mean,
poorly.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it right now, one of the reasons that Excelsius or dashboards, as it is, can exist in a sense that you can use it kind of out of the box. And a lot of people, they don't want to hear that in order to purchase it or to use it, you have to be able to add on a third-party application or SDK, even if that SDK might not even cost you anything. The idea that you need to code anything in addition to anything with it to get it working the way it should be out of the box, I think that kind of scares people. Honestly, I think SAP can do itself a lot of favors if it leverages Design Studio in a way where you can get that coding fear out of their developers. I think they do themselves a little bit injustice when they approach it from a requiring an IT background to build it. That's just not going to cut it for most of the developers who are going to be hitting Design Studio. I still think they're going to be, if they want it to flourish, it's got to be more of that analytical, that analyst, architect type that'll be using it still. So I think you can. I think you can use Design Studio without being a coder. I mean, if it definitely helps if you got a JavaScript background, if you can incorporate that functionality in there, you can make yourself a lot more powerful Design Studio. But I mean, I think that if they approach it from that viewpoint where you don't have to be a coder to hit Design Studio, they'll get a lot more adoption a lot sooner than what they have right now, because that's the main argument that's being used against it by its competitors. Actually, even within the community, you can't use Design Studio if you're not a coder. So I think that's got to be the way, especially if there's any hope that they're going to be able to bridge that gap with dashboards, and if they're going to throw in a tool that's going to unite the two, which as Mike was saying, it doesn't sound like that's the case now, moving down the road. Whereas earlier on it was. They got to get that fear of coding out of the box, because that's really what won people over with Excelsius back in the 7, 8, 9 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know that it's just the fear of coding, right? I mean, you actually do. I mean, if you want more than a single chart pointing at a single data source that doesn't have to refresh or have any interaction, if you want anything beyond that, you really need to be able to write some sort of code, right? And you can you can Google the heck out of it and hopefully find a thread that says, this is what I want to do. But I mean, if you're sort of the traditional Excelsius developer, I don't know how you would get started with it. And quite frankly, I mean, BI teams do not have a bunch of people who are Java coders, right? I mean, you have people that are really good at SQL. You have people that are really good at Excel. You have people that are good in sort of, they're really good tool users, but they're not programmers, right? And I feel like that's still too big a gap. I can't take somebody who writes Christopher reports and send them to a 3-day class and have them come back and spitting out Design Studio, right? I could do that with Excelsius. I can do that with Lumira, obviously. I mean, I can send them to an hour webinar and they can come back and start building stuff with Lumira. But I don't know. I don't know how you get somebody up to speed. And if it is that simple, then I think SAP or somebody needs to deliver the 3-day Design Studio for dashboard developers and as a class and get it over with. But I haven't seen anything like that.
No, and I gotta tell you, I think it was Andrew Fox who said it. It's like the first time he used the tool, he had to read the manual like inside and out just to get something going, and even then it wasn't pretty. And I mean, and I've read through the Design Studio book, the one that's by SAP Press, inside and out, and I'm still like, I still got to go through the manual to get something. It's just not an intuitive tool. So, I mean, that's definitely the case. It's not a 3-day thing and start, plugging and chugging away.
That's interesting. I mean, you guys have a different perspective than me because, and I totally get it though, because coming from like maybe from Excelsius to Design Studio, that's got to be a jarring thing, right? I mean, there's a scripting layer there that just traditionally, you would either achieve with Excel formulas or some filtered rows wizardry or whatever. But I came from a Bex web application designer background and a web development background, so a lot of the logic was just even then achieved in JavaScript. So a lot of that skill set I just brought forth just with prior experience anyway. So it should dawn on me more because I deal with our analysts a lot. But for it to come so second nature from a web development background, I'm like, well, oh yeah, BI action language, that makes perfect sense to me. It's a Java type language. Oh yeah, no, this is great. This is better than monkeying around with Excel ranges. So I actually thought that was a refreshing change for me from going from Bex Web to Excelsius for a couple of years and then to Design Studio. So I think it's kind of like in the eye of the developer, like in the eye of the beholder or developer, like what's your preferred development pattern? Is it a code window or is it a visual select and dice and slice type of thing? So. And I can see the benefits of both, but for me as a coder, it's been nice.
It's interesting to hear the perspectives because as much as anybody wants to bag on Excel being the model for SAP Dashboards, it made dashboard development possible to a much broader range of BI developer than Design Studio does. You just hit the nail on the head, Mike. Design Studio appeals to the person with some application development background that's not a BI developer. I don't think of those as the same person.
Excelsius wasn't even developed by Business Objects. It was acquired by Sergio somebody. I don't remember how far back. So, I mean, you got to consider the original audience when you think about who the tool was originally developed for. It was developed for analysts, not for IT authors. So because of that, it's a heck of a lot easier to use. It got repositioned, but you can look at a product lineage and gain a lot of insight into who the original audience really was.
Absolutely.
But SAP also, there are certain things that that with the tool up until this point has not been able, it has not helped itself in terms of adoption. I mean, just the simple fact that you just can't connect the data, or you can't connect Design Studio to some, temporary data and just do some visualizations without having to connect it to live data. I mean, that's a, I mean, I know you can. There's some CSV connectors where you can get that with like some SDK, but that you still got to go through a third party. But I'm just saying, just getting something up and going with some dummy data, that even that's a limitation with the tool.
Yeah.
That really could have been done by this point.
I agree totally. Like, there's no excuse why they don't have better rapid prototyping tools. I mean, the fact that people like me are writing a bring your own data component to do exactly what you're talking about is kind of like should be pointing out a sore spot. Like, and I mean, it's been 2.5 years. Like, come on, like, let's close the gaps already and be able to use this tool.
So Mike, you said that at your shop, it's if you have a problem, solve it with Design Studio. If you think you want to solve it with Excelsius, really think about it and then think about it again. That's not our experience at all. So I'm wondering if it has to do with the rest of your technical landscape, right? So we have business objects and a bunch of people who are good at business objects. We have HANA and not a lot of people that are very good with HANA yet, but we don't have any other SAP, we don't have Bex, we don't have BW, any of that business, and we are trying to find a use case for Design Studio and having like no luck. And I actually have a developer on my team who is a Java developer, and he still can't get it. He still can't come up with that first dashboard that he wants to use it with.
Oh, I muted Mike and now I can't get him off mute. Oh, I feel terrible.
Here we go. No, it's fun. Anytime our train goes by, my beagle goes, just goes crazy. So sorry about that. Now, Jamie, I think, I get it. Why change if there's not a good reason to? But you said you're not a Bex shop, right?
I want to change. I can't come up with any. Every time I want to try to do something in Design Studio, I hit a wall, and I end up having to go back to dashboards.
I think for me, it's more about future state maintainability. So we've done some crazy stuff in Excelsius. I've also written extensions in Excelsius. I don't even want to get into that or relive it, but just because our BW data warehouse is, I think, 12 terabytes the last I checked. So a mountain of our data is in BW, and it's so difficult to, every time you want to project a new slice or a new dice of that data, you've got to take that Bex query, run it through Webby, expose it as a new query as a web service, be a web service block, schedule the Webby instance, and I mean, there's so many layers, and it's so ridiculous. Like, I'm talking about build time for new solutions and how quickly you can do that. How it's just so much more quick to do in Design Studio. That's what because maybe it's a BW specific thing. That's why we really home in on what can make our developers' lives easier.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is that because we have BW, our lives really sucked. And this makes it suck marginally less.
Yeah.
I mean, is that a fair assessment?
Can I say that? Can I say that while I'm getting recorded? Yeah.
It's your job. I don't know, but I'm happy to say it.
I've got similar qualms even with Webby on BW. I mean, it's just it's BW is its own difficult animal. In Design Studio, being multidimensional makes it a little less painful. Absolutely.
Mike, have you guys been able to take a dashboard that you built in Excelsius and convert it into Design Studio 100%, get the same functionality that you were getting in Dashboard?
The functionality, yes. Did I cheat by writing my own SDK components? Yes. It really depends. We've got some really exotic Excelsius dashboards, as I'm sure everybody does. And we've grown in our maturity in pushing back on the businesses too to say, do you really think that you need that much stuff in a dashboard? Do you really think that you need 12 different permutations of dicing this up in different ways and all these accompanying web services to accommodate it. So we've been able to simplify the requirements gathering over the years and just mature as an organization. So I don't fault Excelsius for our maturity and getting better at developing dashboards as a thing, not a tool. So I think it's a little mix of both, that we've just become better at managing the demand. But no, we've ported over, and these are all proof of concept ones, to say, hey, no, we can take this and turn it into this.
And as the SDK work that you did, was it to make your life easier, or was it necessary for it to work to convert over, or was it, you know what I mean? Was it just a way to, hey,
it wasn't for
this, or we need to do this function, we need this SDK for it to work?
It's actually both. So it started, well, they announced SDK support in 1.2 about 3 tech ads ago, right? 3, 2, I don't know. And I just wanted to see what it would do from a, you know, hey, what value can it add to this to maybe one day move on to something more HTML5 based. But no, there are. It's more on the user side, user experience, user UX, UI side, like visualizations, selectors, components, maps. Some things that you can achieve with vanilla Design Studio, like popovers, you'd have to take 7 components and a lot of BIAL to do that on your own. I can do it with 1 component in a property sheet. So developer convenience is also paramount to me. I want my own team of developers to be able to rapidly crank these things out. So, but not just developer efficiency, but also usability for the end users as well. So a lot of both.
And were you able to say that your number of developers, your number of Design Studio developers is at the same level as your number of dashboard developers, or have you been able to? Do you have any crossover between the two? How has that come along?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're like a mill products company, so we're not like a technology company and rapid to adopt. It wasn't until like 2011 that we really were trying to start promote Excelsius usage, like among our own developers. So there's certain people who are just wired to go and figure this stuff out on their own, and then they end up being tasked with spreading it to the rest of their team, and that was kind of the role I fell into. So here we are in 2015, and I'm sitting here like contradicting myself to my own team, saying, "Oh no, you don't want to use Excelsius anymore. You want to, like start looking at Design Studio." The fact is we were behind the curve a little bit anyway with our Excelsius maturity, and around 2011. The mature, I wouldn't say that Excelsius had reached its peak, but I could already kind of see the writing on the wall. We don't see as many enhancements anymore for Excelsius. They're not moving off of Flash for desktop. I mean, it's dead. It's the final nail hadn't been nailed in the coffin, but you got to move off of it eventually. So that's why I kind of focused and zeroed in on Design Studio. That and the Beck's web application designer background, and so that's what we're promoting.
You said something there about it being dead. I guess I'm still sort of hedging my bets against SAP and the message that you can deprecate tools, but you can't deprecate content. That there'll be some way to easily get from dashboards to Design Studio.
Yeah. Well, if Design Studio didn't displace it totally, then I think Lumira is also cannibalizing some of that. The rest of the rapid visualization, I guess maybe some people moved on to Explorer and probably will make their way to Lumira, but the rest of the holdouts, they're Swift files. At the end of the day, these things are running in a Flash VM. They can live forever, whether they're hosted in the BI platform or elsewhere. You can't snuff them out, but future-looking stuff, with existing content aside, I'm not on the crusade to redevelop everything that we've done in Excelsius over in Design Studio. I'm just seeing less of a reason to start in Excelsius for new content.
Speaking of, you brought up Lumira. I don't know. I've seen over the last year, I've seen more demand to show that self-service discovery tool with the visualization capabilities of a Lumira over a dashboards or a design studio coming around. I mean, I've seen people say, hey, you know what? I don't know that I need this dashboard or this to be a dashboard. I need the content that's in the dashboard, but I need it more in a data discovery type tool. I've actually seen a lot more movement in that direction, to the point where I think it can become where people thought they needed a dashboard, but really what they wanted is more of a discovery tool like a Lumira or its competitors. So I can see that.
You can say Tableau. It's okay.
Tableau.
We're all friends here.
I just don't want to. I don't want to get it. You know. I don't wanna, hey, I got a license. I go to school. So yeah. So I see people moving down that direction of a Tableau or a Lumira. Because ultimately people, they start off with wanting a dashboard, but really what they want is they want to just get their hands on the data, and they think that, hey, if we just ask for a dashboard, that's the easiest way to do it. But what's your thought on that? Because I'm actually becoming more excited as I'm seeing some of the extensions available in Lumira and some of the SDK content that you can do with D3 on Lumira, where you can start creating some nice visualizations on top of it that you probably weren't able to do in the earlier versions of it as visual intelligence.
Yeah, I got two thoughts. I think dashboards, two terms I hate are dashboard, like just the word noun dashboards, not the product, and self-service, because they're such misnomers. They can mean anything. I mean, self-service may mean, hey, I just want to run the report on my own, or maybe I want to interact with it, or maybe I want to create my own data mashup. It's like such a spectrum of, like, that's not a requirement. We get requirements say, I want self-serve. That's same thing with dashboard. What do you mean you want a dashboard? What do you mean?
No, I need a dashboard for big data.
Yeah.
Big data dashboard.
Yeah. So, I mean, it really gets down to the essence of it. Are you doing data discovery or data mashups or whatever the new data augmentation, whatever the new term is?
Look at truth.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, I think it's really the combination of the two, right? So what I see come across a lot is I really want a dashboard, and about 2 or 3 levels into that dashboard, it's, we need to kick you out to Explorer. We need to kick you out to Lumira. We need to kick you out somewhere where you can do all of this other stuff, right? Because if you try to build a dashboard to meet all of their needs, it will never ever be done, right? And so
it will never load. Yeah.
Well, that's true. But I think it's that combination of, look, I want sort of this guided analysis when I start to tell me, here's the stuff I look at all the time, and I want to know what's wrong with it. Then when I see that something is wrong, then I need to be able to go in and twist it and turn it and look at all this stuff. And so I think, Lumira is not there because it doesn't have the front end pieces. And so I think, with the integration and interoperability between Lumira and Design Studio that is planned, I think that is a really compelling use case, right? Where, well, I'm an analyst and I develop this story, right? And it's 80% of what I really need to make it an effective dashboard or BI application or whatever you want to call it. You port it into Design Studio, you add those extra little things, and then at the end of that you kick them back out to the Lumira piece to further their exploration. So I think that's where the future of these applications is going. But
you think it'll be a two-way street like that, from Lumira to Design Studio back to Lumira? I mean, I see it as a one-way, just from seeing analysis for Office, export to Design Studio application, and then it's just a really rudimentary port. I'd love to see what you're talking about, where it's a constant back and forth.
No. I don't. I think that's more in the process, right? So I think that from a development process, you would start in Lumira,
For
pull
whiteboarding.
it into Design Studio, right, and finish it in there, and then the last piece of that Design Studio application would just be a hyperlink into
Okay, I got you.
a Lumira,
Okay.
data
Springboard
set
or
on a server.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've really started to dabble on the edge of analytic apps here, guys. And I think we all wanted Excelsius and dashboards to be that for a really long time. We wanted things like write-back and better interaction between dashboard components. And Design Studio, I think, has some of that process, and even the hardcore things like developing apps in UI5, right, where we do have visualization components. Those things that are tried and true apps, Jamie, that allow us to take some action, switch between screens, and do it in a really performant way is that seamless BI. And guys like us that have been trying to do that with dashboards and now Design Studio are just frustrated in trying to have that same kind of interaction on a device or in a browser that guys building full-on apps in .NET or Java or whatever else could do today with D3.
Yeah. Amen. Actually, yeah. We've done some hacks where treating query as a web service is transaction as a web service, and some other weird stuff in Excelsius to write back or create actions. But yeah, it's such a weird thing. Like write back, whether it's integrated planning or some kind of connectivity hack. If I'm following what you're saying, it should be a whole lot easier than it is today with the stack that we have to accomplish something as simple as commentary, right? I mean, to do a comment in a dashboard, you got to go rely on third party or a SDK vendor or whatever to fill that gap.
Right.
Or to save my settings, right? So I built this dashboard that has all of the information for the entire company, but I always go in, drill to my accounting unit.
Always see it my way, yeah.
Just that personalization effort is way too hard.
Well, it's, I think with 1.4, they've got this new fragment approach that I'm not saying it's perfect. I know it's not perfect, but and even the bookmarking functionality to kind of get it how you like it, and then just save it, and when I come back, I can get back, quickly to where I was. The problem I had with bookmarks is as soon as you tweak the dashboard again, all the bookmarks are blown away. Like, what is that? Like, I just wanted to change like the title of a button, and now everything's gone. So at least with fragments, though, it saves like just a piece of that application, and I see a lot of promise in that. At least to Jamie, what you're describing is, I just want to get it to how I want to see it and be able to get back to it quickly. And again, from a BW background, like we've had Bex bookmarks forever, and so like that's just like a thing that we were like, oh yeah, I mean you always get that. I mean that's
like shut up, we got it.
Yeah, like so. And actually, if you peel back the covers on Design Studio, like this is basically Beck's Web Application Designer under the covers. If you look at the jars, at the end of the day, a lot of this is built on Beck's Web from 2004 or 2007.
I freaking knew it. I freaking knew it.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what initially. That's kind of what they were saying was it was coming as a replacement for WAD and not necessarily for dashboards, but
yeah,
sort of moved in that direction very quickly.
Oh, all the JavaScript includes are a carbon copy of what was in Beck's Java from BW 7.0. How long ago was that? Like, with very, very, very minimal code changes.
So I think at the end of the day, right, my synopsis would be, if you're a BW or Beck shop, it makes a lot of sense to try to use Design Studio anywhere you can.
Yeah.
If you are not, good effing luck for the time being, right? I mean, you have to have a very specific use case and the right resources. But to say I'm going to turn all of my Excelsius developers into Design Studio developers, that is not going to happen for most customers. And I think the path forward, if BW agnostic customers are going to get into the Design Studio game, it needs to be where you can build a pretty decent dashboard without any coding, but that coding is still there for when you need to go above and beyond, right? And I think that's fine. If I could do 95% of what I do in my dashboards now with my same resources, and that last 5% I would need an actual programmer for, I would be fine with that. But it's, I can do 25% of it, and it's just not there for me.
No, I get that. And would you say that like Lumira would be the first pass at the non-coding version of what ultimately may end up being a BI application, authored maybe ultimately either solely in Lumira or maybe with some refinement in Design Studio if needed? Or is Lumira too immature of a product for other reasons that's not viable?
Well, I think Lumira just doesn't have. It's not meant to build real applications in, right? I can't control where my filters are applied. I can't have more than one data set show up on the same story. I can't have lots of things like that, and I need to be able to do that in order to build a dashboard. How many dashboards only live on a single granularity of a data set? It's very few for us.
I think Webby, in a sense, would be a better bet than Lumira for you at this point. If you wanted to build something nicer with the selectivity there for the user, I would move my customers if they had HANA but they didn't have expertise in Design Studio, I would move them towards Webby. Right at this point in time, where they can get that look and feel, that interactivity that the dashboards have, kind of moved into Web Intelligence. I would move them there before I went to Lumira, just because kind of that nicer looking, just that crisper feel that Lumira doesn't have, and it doesn't have intentionally because it's not trying to be a dashboard. But you can kind of hack it that way. I would actually move the customer to Webby before I did that.
Yeah, I think with Webby you have that more pixel perfect control where Lumira you're kind of like demoted to a split layout at the end of the day with some kind of storyboard or infographic or whatever. But yeah, Webby's got a whole lot of flexibility. You can merge dimensions across multiple queries and create on-the-fly formulas a little bit. I know you can do data prep, but just Webby seems like a more intuitive tool for that kind of stuff. Even prior to me thinking Design Studio was even relevant, I was promoting Webby over Excelsius just because as soon as people shift to self-serve, as soon as you want to make a change to a dashboard, it's just easier to do in Webby. Versus trying to recompile or republish an Excelsius Swift file. I see a big circle with a picture in the middle of it on the screen right now.
You know what? I guess my one last scenario / question. One of the chief issues / design challenges with Excelsius that was row limits. Developers tried to shove too many rows of data into a dashboard all at the same time. Is that a better fit for Design Studio as well, dealing with volume?
This is a very good question, and it's the exact opposite is the case with Webby on BW. For Design Studio on BW, that's not a big problem. If you try to put a universe inside of Design Studio, which is that's a data connectivity option, you're hit with a 5,000 row limit, hard coded, not configurable, or a 50,000 cell limit, rows times columns, not configurable. That's nothing. So if you think of it in terms of pulling in that default data set view that you want to make available to like a crosstab or a filter panel, you need to pluck in all the a reasonable amount of dimensions to facilitate that. So that's actually where BW like smears universes. Probably again because it's inherently a multi-dimensional BI client. Whereas the opposite is nearly the case in my experience with you put Webby on top of BW, a relational reporting client. So to answer your question, Eric, yeah, I mean it's actually it depends is the answer in my experience. BW winning over because it pushes all that down to the OLAP layer, whereas when you have Design Studio on a universe, it like has to stage it in this OLAP facade layer to convert it into multi-dimensional terms that Design Studio then works with. So it's this server limitation of this 50,000 cells that'll get you. 50,000 is still a lot.
It sounds like you're out of luck if you have Design Studio, but you don't have BW or HANA.
Yeah.
You're really at a disadvantage. I mean, you're sitting at a rock and this really hard place. I just don't know. For me, I feel like if you want to get if HANA is being the adoption that they want everybody to go towards, then you really wanted to get dashboards being able to connect to HANA and Webby to be able to connect directly to HANA. I mean, and those two not happening yet are causing a lot of customers to kind of be in that tough spot where they can get some Lumira, some functionality with Design Studio, but they can't get it all in one tool.
Oh yeah, I mean we've got that. I could get on a soapbox, I won't. But like with Webby specifically, we're the shoes on the other foot. We being a BW primarily BW for our EDW, using Webby on top of that is not ideal. We can't filter on measures. We can't do conditional rankings. We have to pull back way more data into the DSL bridge or whatever layer that is to pull a result set back. So we've been hurting for a different tool because we're punished for being the wrong data source for the tool that our users want to use. I really would like to see that harmonized, and I hate that HANA's the answer for any of that. Like this dual schema thing, right? Where I can be OLAP, I can be relational. Depends on which tool. I mean, like that's unfair to tell a customer, well, it would get better if you get HANA. That way you don't have to duplicate data. But we're duplicating data in Oracle out of VW to for performance reasons that a different tool, but similar kind of in game that you want it to work well.
Yeah. But I think the thing that I'm hearing is dashboards in either case still require a decent aggregate layer strategy for your data. You can't expect to run a bajillion rows of transactional data through the dashboard and get good performance. So a well-thought database design is important as well. So,
and a well-thought-out, and you need a well-thought-out dashboard design build. I mean, the thing with dashboards that a lot of people that were using dashboards back in the day, they would just take one query and dump it all in Excel sheet. And they never worked out the staggering effect. I think you're going to bring in data at different levels, trigger the data to go get more data. I mean, that's the other thing is you need a good developer and you need a good dashboard developer to trigger that data connectivity. That was, I mean, I know a lot of dashboards project that failed because they spent all this time on the nice UI, but when it came to bringing the data, it was like one big dump.
6 minutes to load. Then.
Yeah. It was literally a dump.
One big data dump. Yeah.
He called it a dump. Yeah, we know what you mean.
I mean, look at what people do today. They just dump into workbooks and then go put it in a pivot table in Excel. I mean, it's the same pattern, in my opinion, as when you just replace pivot table designers with Excel sheets. I mean, it's a great idea in small scale, but then it just falls on itself when you, at least with Excelsius, with larger data volumes.
I've had at least 2 requests this week for people who have been adding memory and memory and memory to their laptops because they would export a 200,000 row table from an application and then a 700,000 row table from an application and try to VLOOKUP across both of them to join them, and they couldn't get it to come back anymore. You know, it used to come back in an hour, and now it won't come back at all. And
hour?
The solution, yeah, and the
Oh
solution,
my God.
The solution, of course, is, well, they're in the same application. Just join them in the query before you suck it out. But I mean, that's, you know, that's. I don't know. I really just wanted to bring that up.
A hammer's a hammer,
Yeah.
right? If you only know one tool, I mean, you're gonna, use it until you're misusing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And well beyond. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're deep in the topic here. Let's start to come out and put a bow on this episode. I gotta be honest. I think this is probably the third time we've talked about dashboards and Design Studio. Just a couple of new faces, which we're really grateful for. But I feel like the conversation might very well be the same we've had. I'll let Jamie maybe agree or disagree.
I agree.
Yeah. So, I don't know that I have a solution other than fix it, but there clearly needs to be a non-application developer experience in Design Studio if Excelsius is going to die and transition successfully and have the same kind of uptake. And
importantly, Excelsius needs to die, right? So it's fine that we can keep our content going forward, but I have to build stuff that goes on iPads, right? We all have to build stuff that goes on iPads, and the solution that's been in Excelsius for that for 3 years has been terrible at best, right? So we need to get Design Studio to that point. I need to be able to leave Flash behind.
They need to offer just an HTML5 runtime replacement for the Swift presentation. I mean, it couldn't be that much work. They're almost there. They're
75% there.
Yeah. I mean, just finish it. Finish it. I mean, APOS has a dashboard migrator that lets you use the HTML5 version on the desktop. It can't be that much code to just finish it. I mean, or not. I mean, either kill it, put a bullet in it, or, finish it. One of the two. It's kind of in that weird limbo, to your point. I mean, it's half done.
And in a way, I almost wish they would just kill it quickly instead of making it go through this slow death.
It's tough to watch. It's like I almost came up with a bad analogy. Never mind. Yeah.
Like that insurance video, they killed him. I mean, they should have just done the same thing with dashboards and just let people know right now. I mean, it should have just been that insurance company.
Well, for me, this has been a good perspective to hear from a non-hardcore coder perspective. What is being lost if you were to go from Excelsius to Design Studio, the whole visual modeling or flow control logic layer that you have in Excel. Whereas I kind of again, coming from Beck's web application designer over to Excelsius, it's where's my code window? So I was glad to have that back. So it's kind of it's kind of the inverse. But I can appreciate the need for both. Obviously, for two different audiences, it's kind of like a convergence of two different solutions in one. At least that's what they told us. So.
All right, guys. Listen, thanks for coming to go to chat. Jamie, tell Becca we said good night. This may be a podcast first. And hey, it's a family affair.
Tell them good night.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, gents.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
This podcast is hosted and sponsored by EV Technologies. Visit us on the net at savethecms.com.
D-Slayer!